Super Mario Sunshine is my favorite game of all time. In fact, I've gotten 100% this game like 6 or 7 times this year alone, and I'm somehow still not tired of it. It's the only game I can do that with. It having, in my opinion, the best movement of any game, the best game world with a ton of genuine world building, projectile vomiting Yoshis, the overarching tropical theme, and the most charm of any mainline Mario by a country mile. It all leads to this being one of the most unique games out there, and I love it so dearly. However, it was a rushed game. The GameCube was not selling well, so they needed to push out the next major Mario game. This unfortunately led to a lot of concessions. Multiple levels were cut, the game's target frame rate went from 60 FPS to 30, and now it's a pretty infamously janky game. I think it should be seen as a triumph that despite all of this, they still managed to make something so special with so much love and thought put into it. But I do often think about what could have been if they didn't have to make so many sacrifices to potentially save the GameCube. Unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. Except now it is! Sorta. Super Mario Eclipse is a mod of Super Mario Sunshine by the Eclipse team with Joshua MK as a lead developer. In a lot of ways, it fulfills Nintendo's original vision and so much more. It's an expansion to the original game, having all of that content plus 2 new characters, and 120 additional Shine Sprites with multiple levels being based off unused levels from the original game, along with plenty of bug fixes and yes, 60 FPS. I don't use that because it screws with the music sometimes, but still, it's cool that it's there. It's been in development for about 5 years now, and it's finally out. I'm so happy to say that after years of seeing 64 fans getting so many high-quality full hacks, and Sunshine getting very little in comparison. I do love what we've gotten from the Sunshine modding community so far, as I've made clear before, but I've been waiting for a big boy hack. This is a big boy hack. I originally wasn't going to review Eclipse so soon. The original plan was to review the original Sunshine and then Eclipse sometime after that because this is an expansion to Sunshine. But man, I was just way too excited. I saw this map posted in the Discord and got immediately excited. I spent like an hour staring at it, translating the names from Italian to English using Google Translate, and just imagining how this version of Isle Delfino would look like. Trying to figure out where the added junctions are in relation to levels from the original game. Like this junction here north of Bianco Hills leading to Pianta Village is in Sunburn, so that was easy to figure out. But there's this new one in the west. It didn't take long for me to figure out that this junction is past the wooden fence in that river, which got me so excited because I've always wanted to go past that. I was right, by the way. This game genuinely feels like a game I would have dreamt of or had fantasies about as a kid. Opening up spots that were always closed off before, adding new levels on the island where there was originally just more grass, adding Green Yoshi, which is something I went crazy over as a kid because the manual lied to me. This game doesn't feel real to me, but this is real. I have played it, twice even, and you are looking at it right now. So yeah, I was excited for this game. I was already obsessively messaging my poor friend Jules, but I knew once it came out, I would need to do that on a much greater scale. When I decided to make this video, I didn't think it would be as big as it ended up being, but that seems to be a running trend for me because, yeah, when I wrote this script, I accidentally didn't shut up and made the longest video I've ever made, so I hope you enjoy this. I really was just that excited to talk about this game. In fact, I played the game twice for this video. The first time was on versions 1.0 to 1.0.2, and the second time was on versions 1.0.3 and 1.0.4. So you'll be seeing a lot of footage that while isn't representative of what you've played now, I still think is relevant to the discussion, and I'll of course make notes of any major changes on the way. I will be prioritizing footage for my second playthrough because that is the more up-to-date one, but I will be showing plenty of footage from my first one too. I've actually already talked about Eclipse a little bit in a previous video, which did absolutely insane numbers by the way. I got over 7,000 views, which is so much better than any other video I've ever made, so thank you for that. While I promise that's not why I'm opting to cover it now, it definitely helps. In that video I only covered the demo, so I left out a lot of opinions and details out of an attempt to avoid being redundant whenever I do cover the full thing. Well, that day came a lot sooner, so I'm really happy to finally be reviewing Super Mario Eclipse. Okay, so I feel like before I start, I should clarify exactly what this game is. Super Mario Eclipse greatly expands Sunshine by adding multiple new levels to Isle Delfino itself and different junctions connecting levels together, along with a very extensive post-game and of course, all of the original Sunshine content. Altogether, this means there are 240 Shine Sprites and 420 blue coins, with 120 of those shines being fully new, and 18 of those new ones coming from this game's 180 new blue coins. Needless to say, this game is absolutely massive, especially considering this is Sunshine's first full hack. I know to some it might seem a bit weird that half of this mod is the original Sunshine instead of just being a fully original hack, but I don't know. On top of Sunshine having a lot of cut content and large chunks of the island being empty, I think this game just lends itself better to this idea compared to most games out there. It's just so easy to look at these empty plots of land and imagine, what if? It allows them to expand on Mario Sunshine and its world so much more than what they'd ever be able to do otherwise through all the new levels. Even adding new lore and characters expanding on the old ones. And they were able to do this so much more just by adding new levels to an old game. But before I talk about the new stuff, let's talk about the original Sunshine content and what they've changed, because there's a lot. Okay, so you've probably already noticed this one, and while it is only a visual change, it's by far the most noticeable change they've made to base Sunshine, so let's talk about the darkness. In the original game, a major plot point is that now that the island is polluted, the Shine Sprites have fled the Shine Gate, making the island a lot darker. In the actual game, this only affects the plaza, and it fully lights up again whenever you beat Bowser or get 60 Shine Sprites, which is only half of them. Kinda feels like you're hoarding them after a certain point. Not to mention, it's pretty blatantly inconsistent. Like, you can see levels like Rico Harbor or Peanut Park are dark from the plaza, but then you get there and they're bright. And the plaza is now too. Eclipse addresses this by having the darkness apply to the whole game, hence the name, Eclipse. This is really cool in a lot of ways. The darkness itself has a lot more nuance, being very dark in the beginning, but slowly becoming less so the more shines you get, even if you're outside the ring of light around the Shine Gate. And the light itself has much less of an abrupt cutoff compared to the original. It impacting the whole game also means you can see light partially cover up levels. This alone does so much to push the idea of Isle Delfino being a real, well thought out world. It's also just really cool being able to see your progression have an actual tangible effect on the world around you, and even heavily incentivizes you to get as many shines as you can for reasons beyond just beating the game. The inside of Hotel Delfino in the second episode of Serena Beach also looks genuinely so cool. Not to mention that you now need every Shine Sprite in the game to fully light up the island, encouraging you further to get everything. The original game did a lot of these, but Eclipse does it on a much larger scale. And I have very mixed feelings on all of this. I can see why so many might love this and why they added it to begin with, but this makes the game so much more visually repetitive and outright ugly compared to the original game. The original game is so vibrant and pretty and completely nails that summer vibe it's known for, but this aspect of Eclipse more or less kills it. The fact that you need to 100% the game to achieve that vibe kinda sucks. Like yeah, 120 so shines means that each level will be more or less lit up, but you still have that dark sky going on constantly in the background. I get that the mod is called Super Mario Eclipse, but I don't think that invalidates anything of what I'm saying, especially because the actual reason people play this mod is for the additional content. The plaza itself unfortunately also loses its nuance in the lighting once you beat the game. Instead, the lighting just sorta balances out into one shade. Unfortunately, once again, in the plaza specifically, once you get all 240 shines, it doesn't actually fully brighten up. It's still a little too dark. I'm assuming this is a bug, and hopefully it gets fixed. Not wanting the game to be this dark also led to me depositing my blue coins much sooner, instead of waiting until I had all of them first, which I haven't done in ages. I kept all 420 until the very end of my second playthrough though, mostly because it was a lot more tolerable there. They added a brighter option after the first update due to accessibility concerns. In the settings you can find Eclipsed mode and the newly added regular mode. Despite the name, it's not vanilla Sunshine. It's still much darker than the original game when you have a low shine count, but not nearly to the same extent as Eclipsed. And it of course gets brighter the more shines you get. Serena 2 thankfully retains its darkness even in this mode. I played the game fully in Eclipse mode during my first playthrough and regular on my second, and I don't mind this too much. I still would prefer just having the original lighting system because it results in a more visually pleasing game to me. But I also didn't really think about the lighting too much when I played this mode, while it was on my mind at all times when I played on Eclipse. Unfortunately, though regular is much brighter overall, it is missing the same nuance as Eclipse, so it doesn't have that cool ever-growing light ring coming from the Shine Gate. I have, however, found a Gecko code in the Discord server thanks to Stephen Shockley made by the Azak9. This was originally made to remove the sunglasses filter in base Sunshine, but it coincidentally works with Eclipse's darkness too by toning it down pretty significantly. This still doesn't make the Eclipse or regular modes like the base game, but it's nice if you just want the darkness to be less extreme. Other than that, Eclipse does a lot of other things to the base Sunshine portion, both big and small. A lot of this stuff is carried over from Sunburn. Like many Shine Sprites no longer boot you out and you can travel from level to level, so expect a lot of comparisons to that. I guess I should quickly explain what Sunburn is for those who don't know. It's another mod by the same team that aims to open up Sunshine a lot. Shines no longer boot you out, it stuffs as many shines as it can in one level, and you can travel from level to level just by walking there. A lot of people love it, I like it, but I have mixed feelings and don't see it as better than the original. I personally see it as more of an alternate take than anything, but you can watch my other video for more details on that. This game runs on BetterSunshineEngine, which implies a bunch of enhancements. It has multiple aspect ratios, including 4x3, 4x3 open matte, 16x9, 16x10, which is great for Steam Deck users, 21x9, and 32x9 if you are insane. Literally one person asked for this, and I respect them so much for including it anyway. There's auto-saving, which is definitely really nice for blue coins, there's bug fixes, new movement options, and a lot more. The bug fixes are a bit of a contentious topic among Sunshine speedrunners because this does mean they've patched out many different clips, and yes, rocket storage. Yoshi skip is patched, and that hurt me like nothing else could. Like, dude, I spent like an hour and a half just practicing it over and over. You can't take it away from me like that. Boat skip is patched too, which isn't as bad as it might sound because you can easily skip most of it anyway by doing this. Plenty of skips are still in this, like I was still able to clip through this building by pausing and throwing a papaya. I easily clipped into this one with a banana and got that shine early. Whoa, wait, I don't think I thought this one through. I was still able to skip the mysterious Hotel Delfino. Thankfully, Casino Skip is still in this. I would actually cry if that was patched because that part is garbage without it. As far as I know, these weren't intentionally patched, it's just a byproduct of improving Sunshine's barely functional collision. And yeah, it is better. Still not great. This happened twice in a row. The one glitch that I know was intentionally patched out is rocket storage. And listen, I love rocket storage too, but it's too good. It's not like Kinney Kicks where it can be broken, but you know, have fun learning that. No, anyone can do rocket storage. Yes, even you, random viewer who has never played Sunshine before, can learn it easily. It's incredibly easy to learn, to a point where plenty of casual players already do it, and I can totally understand why the Eclipse team isn't particularly fond of the idea of a large chunk of their player base cheating through so much of their game. As much as I love rocket storage, they made the right move. Still want Yoshi skip back. I don't personally use rocket storage that much outside of messing around, but it is some top tier messing around. I love clipping into that cave in Noki Bay and using rocket storage to bring the Gooper Blooper boss down with me, and I will miss that. Moving on from the glitches, they removed the map in this game because of technical issues regarding the new levels, meaning you don't quite have the same information at your disposal as you did in the original. You do have your shine and blue coin count on the pause screen, but it's limited to whatever level you're in, unlike the original. I'm honestly fine with this. I don't think it's very hard making a mental note of which levels you have and haven't completed, so this genuinely has not affected me at all. Not to mention that this pause screen count seems to have been a last minute addition, so I'm incredibly grateful that it's in it at all. I cannot imagine how big of a mess 100%ing this game would be without this. I don't really see this being that big of a deal to most people really, so I'm happy with this solution, even if it is worse than what the original did. Yoshi is now green by default and only gains other colors in his iconic high pressure vomiting prowess by eating a fruit. Some Yoshi eggs will require a fruit from the beginning if the level design calls for it, but most of them will just need Mario to run by. This is seemingly how it worked in older builds of the original, which would be why the manual in these renders Gaslit Child me. This also means Green Yoshi can swim, even if he does use very goofy, ill-fitting running animations. He doesn't even gradually lose juice anymore unless you're actively spewing his partially digested food around. And when he does finally starve, he only reverts to Green Yoshi instead of outright dying. Colored Yoshis still can't swim though. I definitely prefer how this Yoshi works overall. It's less tedious not having to grab a fruit every time, especially when you don't even need Yoshi's fruity guttural overflow. It does break episode 8 of Rico Harbor though, because you no longer need specifically a durian and really any fruit would work. They could potentially fix that in the same way they did for levels like the Mysterious Hotel Delfino, but honestly, don't. This is so much better. Because you no longer have to rely on the stupid fruit machine RNG. Since writing this script, I've also learned that you can just make Green Yoshi swim to the island with a lily pad secret pipe and break a fruit over yourself, giving Eclipse its own boat skip. I don't know how fast this is compared to just doing what I did, considering how many trips back and forth you have to do and how slow Mario swims while holding a fruit, but maybe it's faster, I don't know. I touched on the new movements in my previous video on Sunshine mods, but I've had a lot more time to get used to things like the hover burst, and man, it is so good. They seriously added a lot in this. And don't worry, they added a tutorial section for anyone who's unfamiliar with this movement. I've heard some complain about the hover nozzle being slow in the original, but that's clearly an intentional design choice. The hover nozzle is a safety net. It being slow is a good thing because they're incentivizing you to stop relying on it so much. But it is true that there are times where it's still faster to use it compared to not, even if it is slower movement. Or times where you outright have to use it. The hover burst is the perfect solution to that because it gives you comparable distance with a hover nozzle with way more speed, but with no safety net at all. By pressing A after initiating a hover, you launch Mario upwards, basically acting as a double jump. There's a lot more versatility to this than I initially thought though. You can hover or burst out of basically any jump at all. I especially love combining dives with it. You can get a lot of distance if you do that. Beyond that, you can also use the different nozzles while you're diving. I really love diving into the ground and then using the hover nozzle to propel myself forward during the dive, and then continuing to use it on the ground to give myself even more insane speeds. They changed the turbo nozzle to be much faster, apparently because it's actually slower compared to water sliding in the original game. It can be pretty hard to control if you don't know it's pressure sensitive, so just know that you can slow down just by not holding the R button all the way down. I already covered this when I covered Sunburn, but you can also dive right before a rocket to do this, and it's very fun. There's multiple new moves like the long jump, backflip, and even some moves that are currently unavailable in Sunburn, like the underwater ground pound and ground pound jump. I really love the underwater ground pound because it speeds up certain parts in the game, but I really wish it could be applied to these underwater hover sections. And the ground pound jump probably has its uses. I don't know, I didn't use it much, but I also previously didn't use the hover burst that much either, and I just spent an entire paragraph talking about how cool it is, so maybe there's something there. I've never actually missed the lack of a long jump in the original game because that game has its own great moves that can serve similar purposes, but having a jump that is both fast and long is still really nice. Also, you can Y-turn long jump now, and that is very cursed. Another really cool change is that they removed the speed cap to Mario's dive and allowed jumps to carry more momentum. In Sunshine, Mario's dive could actually slow you down depending on how fast you're going, but that's no longer the case, allowing you to more freely incorporate Mario's dive into his movement without at all hindering you. Combining all of these things together makes Mario absolutely insane. Like, here I am diving into a water slide while maintaining that hover to propel Mario even further and letting that speed build. Then I roll out of that dive into a landing spin jump and hover burst as I clear that building, and then I finally dive out of that hover burst. So not only did I entirely skip that building, but I also went past the dock boat and the blue coin hut. This is the kind of movement I love, when you have a variety of different moves you can pull off, all working together to enhance one another. Sunshine already did this so well and had my favorite movement of any video game, but BetterSunshineEngine made it even better. They literally improved perfection. I'm still very happy with my Sunshine mods video, but my biggest regret is not getting to understand the movements more, and I'm so happy I can rectify that here. But you can't do that steep ground hover zippy thing, so it sucks actually. They changed the blooper surfing too. In the original, each color was actually the same speed as long as you held forward on the analog stick, so the green one was actually just objectively the best one, because it had the best turning. Here, they actually fixed that, so now the purple one is actually the fastest like it was probably supposed to be, and oh my god. Yeah, this is not something I'd recommend for the base game areas, unless you're insane. It works great for the new blooper surfing course though. Mario can now weirdly throw water balloons. This unfortunately utterly breaks the Goopy Inferno, obviously, but I'm pretty sure that this is a carryover from one of the new characters, El Piantissimo, which you unlock by beating El Piantissimo races. That would be all 3 vanilla races, and the new one on Lighthouse Island. If you've seen my other video, you already know how this guy works. He has no FLUDD, but some of the most insane movement you can imagine. He's faster, jumps much higher, and even has a double jump that can go in any direction on top of being able to spin jump into a double spin jump. Like I said, he doesn't have FLUDD, instead having an infinite source of water balloons. This is obviously not nearly as effective at cleaning stuff, but it does technically work, unless the graffiti is on the ceiling. You can span them as much as you want as long as you're in the air, though sometimes depending on your timing they can stay in your arms and you have to throw them manually with B, which is annoying. He also straight up does not take fall damage ever. I assume this is because he doesn't have FLUDD. Yeah, fun fact, Mario doesn't take fall damage without FLUDD in the vanilla game. I don't know why. Piantissimo is broken, but in a weirdly balanced way. Without FLUDD, he has much less of a safety net, so you have to be so much more confident in your jumps. In other words, you already have to be good at the game to use him properly, otherwise you're gonna struggle. What an interesting way to balance a character, but I think it works. Though he is actually just better on your initial trips to the secret levels. So much so that I opted out of not using him for the most part during my first playthrough. But for everything else, I think a lot of casual players are gonna struggle with him. Also, I want to point out that his tree looks really bad compared to the NPC Piantissimo. I don't know what happened there. From the very beginning, they tell you Luigi is going to join Mario, Peach, and the Toads on their vacation later. Once you finally beat Bowser, there he is. Oh my god, it's the meme. He's pretty similar to Mario, but having much higher and floatier jumps. And I've heard he has a lower running speed, but in practice I don't notice anything. Also, he doesn't have fall damage either. I guess it's not FLUDD then? Why did they introduce a dynamic fall damage system just to have Mario being the only one that can break his knees? Luigi's probably better overall, but I play as Mario more often because I like Mario's heavier jumps, and I just like the extra challenge from them being lower, seeing how that's the jump the game was designed around. And yeah, I've just never been that into floaty jumps. They gave him custom jumping animations too, which is really cool, but it looks weird from behind, almost like he has noodle legs swaying around. Both Luigi and Piantissimo have custom voice clips too, which was not the case in the demos. They're far from perfect though, and it's entirely out of Sunshine modding limitations. Mario had a low health voice when you were at 1 or 2 HP in the original game, which is a detail I've always really loved. By the way, I bet you've never heard either of these voice clips before. They unfortunately had to sacrifice this by giving those sounds to Luigi just so he can have his own voice at all. And this doesn't cover every clip. He still blatantly makes Mario noises whenever you do things like hang off grades, fall from a great height, or even bonk. Piantissimo is often mute during a lot of these actions and only has a handful of voice clips in general. None of this is me criticizing because this is just out of limitations outside of the developer's controls, but it'd be really nice if Sunshine modding could fix this one day. Along with Mario not having water balloons too, because I really don't like that. You can select between the 3 characters through this menu that pops up before every level once you unlock one of the extras. Not every level allows you to play as Piantissimo for obvious reasons, but all of them allow for Mario and Luigi. However, they do allow you to attempt Corona Mountain with Piantissimo. I don't think this is possible. I sure did try though. I sure did try. My only complaint is that I wish you could just hold down a button to force the menu to not pop up for the sake of saving time when you don't want to change. But yeah, I really like this approach to different characters. Each feels different from each other and has their own benefits, but none of them are outright required at any point. Well, except Mario, because he's the only one you have unlocked in the beginning of the game, but You get what I'm saying. I much prefer this over the game forcing you to play as one character just because they have one or two abilities you need. It's a lot less restrictive and prevents any situation where you have to play as one specific character that feels like garbage to play just because he's the only one that can punch black bricks. Why is Wario so awful in this game? With all these new moves, lessened speed caps, and new characters with their own insane attributes, this is without a doubt the best movement of any video game to me. I've never played a game where the moves are so plentiful and work this well with one another. In this much variety in the characters, Piantissimo is insane, man. Sunshine's movement was always my favorite, but this is on a whole other level. As far as I'm concerned, this is the best Mario has ever played in 3D. There's a lot of bigger structural changes too, essentially turning the Sunshine portion of Eclipse into the Sunburn Light mod that I suggested in my previous video on Sunshine mods, which I am absolutely thrilled about. Episodes are segmented again, unlike Sunburn, which is a very good thing to me. However, not every episode Shine will boot you out. Beating episode 1 of Bianco Hills does not boot you out at all, allowing you to continue on to beat PD Piranha and collect episode 2's Shine. Most of the red coin, 100 coin, or hidden shines don't boot you out either, so you could just do those on the way to whatever other mission. I suppose this is a bit inconsistent, but every shine that does not boot you out makes sense from a game design standpoint. If you're familiar with the original game, it should not be hard guessing which shines follow this rule and which ones don't. I think they struck a really nice balance here. If you've seen my other video, you'd know that while I do like Sunburn, I do not agree that it's a definitive way to play Sunshine because of how much of the level design and story elements break when you force all these shines into one map. Even when a shine does boot you out, you'd only get booted out to the episode selected, not the plaza. This does sort of become an issue when you've already cleared out the level and have no way to back out of this menu, so you end up loading the level just to leave right after. Though this still majorly reduces the amount of needless loading screens, actually being able to finish the game still means completing every Shadow Mario shine, which there are now 11 of. I originally was going to write about how I appreciate how much more seriously Eclipse takes Sunshine's story compared to Sunburn, but I think they should have taken Sunburn's 70 shine approach here, you know, with way more shines being required, obviously. But I actually completely forgot that you need a ton of Shine Sprites to unlock levels in the post-game, so never mind. They found a way to incentivize optional Shine Sprites while keeping the original game's requirements, and I think that's pretty clever. The changes to the shines themselves in Eclipse to me are only positive. None of these changes conflict with the game's existing design and only improve the pacing, so I very much approve of all of this. It does lead to some messiness if you're unfamiliar with the original. A lot of these shines will come off as awkward or confusing without pre-existing knowledge of the original game, because it's not like you'll really know what to do once you get a Shine Sprite and just continue to stay in the level with no direction. I'm obviously not someone who would come across this issue, but I do think it's worth noting. If you do come across this, it really isn't that big of a deal. Its fix is as simple as just reloading the map by going to the pause screen and scrolling down to this and holding down Z and pressing A. Once you do, it'll just take you to the episode select as if you're playing the original game, giving you the context you might need. Beyond that, they did bring over some other stuff from Sunburn. They made blue coins more widely available from mission to mission. They couldn't do that for every blue coin, of course, but they still found some creative ways to bring over some of the more mission-specific ones. They brought over the more abundant coin count in every level, which I'm still not super big on. I'm in full support of Gelato Beach getting more coins. But Noki Bay already had so many, that one really didn't. There's like 50 in this path alone. Oh, and inside all of the caves too, like there are so many in this stage already. This is way less offensive to me than it is in Sunburn because you no longer can just load up the level over and over to respawn coins while maintaining your existing coin count. However, some levels do have multiple loading zones you can enter and re-enter through, and coins do respawn when you do that, so yeah. Regardless of that, Sunburn 100 coin shines still felt so much emptier to me, while these are still too easy in areas, still have some meat on them. This game also maintains the more open aspects of Sunburn by allowing you to travel from level to level simply just by walking there. Once again, this was another thing I didn't like about Sunburn. It made actually unlocking levels feel a lot more arbitrary, allowed you to easily break the game and see story elements out of order, and was surprisingly easy to leave a level when you didn't mean to. As someone who always gets absolutely everything anyway and likes playing games in order, something like this would just never appeal to me. So I can't help but focus on the negatives. different. While Eclipse still has these exact issues, I think the level warps here are significantly cooler than what Sunburn did, so I actually really like them in this game. In general, they're far more well thought out and varied, and even downright essential to use in some cases. Every level has several fully modeled paths branching out from them with a lot of details added to make them feel more natural. Pianta Village's entrance being this now genuinely looks so cool, even if I was very confused where the blue coin was now. It's here, by the way. I love how you can just jump past this fence and slide down to Gelato Beach. You spawn where you'd realistically come from too. It can potentially break some shines in minor ways, but I don't really care. That goes so far in making this feel real and not artificial like it was in Sunburn. Like, I don't know, swimming from Rico Harbor to Delfino Plaza and then spawning out of the level portal. It made it harder not viewing this as a novelty, but that's why I appreciate it so much here. They added these junctions in between each warp too. They're tiny, but each one has a hidden shine that is sometimes really well hidden. This one took me an embarrassing amount of time to find. Oh, this area looks so cool though. These paths do a ton to make Isle Delfino feel like a real place. Like, I'm not only exploring the main attractions of Isle Delfino in this game, but also the in-between spots. That's so cool. This place is so much more filled out now. They're all named too and kept the Italian naming scheme from the original game. Like Arcobaleno Cove translates to Rainbow Cove, Balente Crypt translates to Boiling Crypt, and Sonolento Grove translates to Sleepy Grove. They even brought back the cut train system. That's so cool. It's literally just a level warp for 4 different levels. I don't care. This is so cool. Dude, it's just so surreal to see these old places I've been seeing for 20 plus years with substantial additions. I suppose that goes for a lot of elements in this hack, but those are mostly in the background. Like, no, this train station is just in Serena Beach now. Rico Harbor has its own train station too. In general, this is so much cooler than anything Sunburn did. So much so that I don't really mind the faults nearly as much. Unlocking levels in the plaza feels just as arbitrary as it did in Sunburn. And yeah, you can still see the Bowser Jr. reveal before Peach actually gets kidnapped, but I almost don't care. Unintentionally leaving a level is a lot harder to do now too. There's less level warps in the water, and starting with version 1.0.3, they added these signs everywhere telling you where these go. That's a really nice addition. Not only does it make it where everything is much more clear, but also acts as visible borders letting you know where the loading zones are. The ones in the water definitely do not look great, but it's worth it for the better readability. But I do think placing the ones in water on buoys would help mitigate the goofiness. Using these level warps is actually outright required to visit most of the new levels too. Airtoe Rock is directly connected to the plaza, but every other new level requires you to use this system, amplifying Sunshine's exploration pretty significantly, and giving these warps a lot more meaning compared to Sunburn's. It's just so cool that you can just stumble upon new levels now. I'm so envious of anyone who fell off Pianta Village just to find a whole new level. That must have been such a cool moment for those who didn't already know. They changed and added a lot when it comes to the LOD maps you see from other levels to either be more consistent with the layout of Isle Delfino or to obviously add the new levels and junctions. They've changed a lot of the existing maps to be more representative towards how they would actually be. To give just a few examples, Peanut Park weirdly looks a lot closer from Rico Harbor and Delfino Plaza than it does from Gelato Beach, which makes no sense, and Eclipse fixed that. They removed that tall Peanut Park tree you can see from the plaza, which isn't representative of how that level actually looks in the final game. There's apparently a lot wrong with Peanut Park. There's still a few inconsistencies, like Rico Harbor's helipad is still a bunch of girders looking in from Bianco Hills, and the pipe is on the wrong island looking at the plaza from Rico Harbor. I'm bringing up Peanut Park again because, again, there's a lot wrong with this level in this department. The version of Peanut Park you see on the beach shows the runaway Ferris wheel in the wrong episode. I was assuming they were gonna fix that, but they didn't. Oh hey, but they added the shell ride back. It was weirdly just a blue void in the original. But they fixed other stuff, so I wouldn't be surprised if this stuff gets fixed in a later update. Multiple levels are either far more visible or straight up added in many other levels. Like, you really couldn't see Pianta Village from any levels in the original game. I can only really think of Peanut Park, and you can get a tiny glimpse of it from Rico Harbor at the very top of this stage. But you can see these giant leaves in so many other levels now, which makes a lot more sense. You got this gigantic tree in the very center of the island, and for some reason you can barely see it. Of course, we have the new levels and junctions. I played the game by getting absolutely all the vanilla stuff I could first, and then moving on to the new stuff after. This led to me seeing all the new stuff off in a distance and just getting so excited to actually play it. Like, what's that forest over there? The new levels are all placed in spots they should be, even some in the very late game areas can be seen from the plaza. It's also just, like, so surreal seeing all of this new stuff surrounding this game I know so deeply. Though I do think the new levels kinda ruin the skyline in Serena Beach. It's hard to admire the sunset with all these new islands in the way, especially after they added those signs. Not much you can do about that, just a bit of a shame. Also, interestingly, in the original Sunshine, outside the boundaries of Pianta Village, you can see a cutout for what looks like a spot for an unused level. I was curious if Eclipse filled in that spot, so I went and checked using Dolphin's FreeCam, and the terrain is just entirely different. And yeah, about where that was is where Rujavesa Marsh is now. Okay, I should probably talk about the new levels now. I'm like half an hour into this, and I'm only now talking about the thing people actually want to play this mod for. On Isle Delfino, there's 6 new levels: Airto Rock, Hotel La Crema, Lighthouse Island, Warship Island, Pianta Pit, and Fire Shrine. All the new levels here but Pianta Pit are based off unused levels from the original game. By name only, of course, because that's all we know about these cut levels. Though I should point out that Battleship Island was renamed to Warship Island in this. But they all fit in with Sunshine really well regardless. Airto Rock, interestingly, is actually placed where the original Nintendo developed level likely would have been, seeing how Airto is Italian for steep, and Rock is English for rock. And look where it is, the rockiest and steepest part of the island. Let's talk about this level first, since it's most people's first new level, seeing how it's the one directly connected to the plaza. This one is really cool. It's on the side of Corona Mountain, so it's a lot of steep cliffs, and it's used as a ziplining spot, which fits Isle Delfino's tropical island vacation spot setting really well. Airto Rock is definitely one of the more platform-heavy levels, having a ton of cliffs everywhere and tight ropes, or I guess zip lines to bounce off of. Yeah, this one's a lot of fun to explore and terrorize the local market. I just really love the vibe of this in general. The sunset, the pink sea, just the colors here look so good. Another one of my favorites is Hotel La Crema meaning tier in Italian. I've known about that unused level for ages now. Heck, the first custom Sunshine level I've ever seen was also another fan interpretation of the same cut level. But I've always wondered how Nintendo would have differentiated it from Serena Beach, assuming both levels were even planned at the same time. The answer is to make it a lot fancier and make it run by the Pianta Syndicate from Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. Okay, technically they're called the Pianta Mafia, but dude, look. That's Dom Pianta. This is so cool. I want more spin-off characters in mainline games. Other than that, the outdoor section is a lot bigger. And once again, it's a lot fancier. There's a fountain, a kitchen, a dining room, an arcade, a pianist, an elevator, and a chandelier. Dude, the pianist actually makes the background music diegetic music. That's such a good touch. I like the vibe of this level a ton, and I think it does more than enough to separate itself from Serena Beach, though this level also takes place at a sunset, just like Serena, so I think it'd stand out a lot more if it took place at a different time of day, like night. Maybe they just wanted to use the other side of the skybox you don't normally see outside of that one secret level, I don't know. Still, this level's great. Lighthouse Island is another cool level. It's not the most extravagant level, really just being a circular island with a small forest, houses, a lighthouse in the center, and a bunch of surrounding platforms and a juice bar. But the vibes, man, the vibes! I do really love this part inside the lighthouse, though. It's a really fun platforming section, and the light shafts and wood just make for a really visually appealing environment. This really is such a pretty level. I don't think I've ever seen prettier greenery in any other GameCube game. There's even some custom enemies here. We got fish bones, which are clearly just reskin Cheep Cheeps, but that's still really cool. And these special piranha plants that get around by spitting their seeds everywhere. I could do without the constant gross slimy noises, but this is still a really interesting variation of piranha plants. I honestly like them a lot more than the piranha plants in the base game. Oh my god, is that... Oh no. David Hasselhoff didn't get here in time. Oh my god, dude, in the first mission, there's a Noki not at all far from that quotes "Open your heart" from Sonic Adventure. This game is after my heart, and it has it. Warship Island is an interesting place to have on a vacation spot. I love the implication that Isle Delfino has a military budget and the fact that Mario gets drafted immediately upon entry. I like the design of this level a lot. It's definitely one of the bigger new Isle Delfino stages, having a beach, wooden platforms, some ships, 3 mountains to climb, and even an underground facility. However, I think a lot of the Shine Sprites here are pretty weak, but I'll talk about that later. The Pianta Pit. It's a level where Piantas who fell off the top of Pianta Village have formed a new society, complete with huts high up in the trees, which is an idea I'm still in love with. I talked about this level a little bit in my previous video, but it changed a lot since that old demo. The vibe of this level is a lot different now, going for something far more atmospheric. I actually really like this newer direction, it fits a lot better. I really love jumping around the trees and getting thrown off by crazed chucksters. They speak in SpongeBob chicken meme. They even brought back the cut enemy from the original game, the Trample and Stew, which fits really well here considering this is a really deep part of the island that most Delfino citizens would never go to. It makes it feel like a cryptid, like Bigfoot or something. The actual level is very easy to get lost in with the trees and dense fog, which is definitely an intentional design choice, but intentional or not, this is just something I've never been into in game design. Subcom Forest from A Hat in Time did the exact same thing, and yeah, I didn't love it there either. I get the intention, I just don't think it translates to the most fun gameplay. But just like that level, this one is still really good overall. The last new area in Isle Delfino is Fire Shrine, however, it's not really a full level. If you look at Corona Mountain, you can see bits of this broken path scattered around the level, implying that it used to be something more. In Eclipse, Fire Shrine is Corona Mountain before everything broke apart. There's even this guy that mentions that the lava is eroding the path, and all of this will crumble down soon. And of course, it turns into the Corona Mountain we all know after the plaza's flood. Gameplay-wise, this only serves as a much less annoying way to get Corona Mountain's blue coins, as long as you get in there before the flood. But man, the world building here is so good. Taking such a small detail from the original game and fleshing it out to turn this level to an ancient temple where Piantas would worship the Shine Sprites is the coolest thing. They went as far to explain that Shine Sprites are guardians born from the volcano itself every so often, but there's some doubts that the next one will come with the island being in the state that it is. Oh yeah, they also added some purpose to that random square at the end by placing a Pianta there. It's not a lot, but adding anything there makes me seethe less. I also appreciate that they better utilize Smolder and Stews here. In the original game, they kinda just plopped them in a couple ill-fitting spots, making it feel like they never really got to fulfill the purpose they were designed for. But here they are, actually fulfilling a purpose that they feel like they were designed for. These levels are pretty great and they capture Sunshine's vibe really well. Just like Sunshine, they all feel like real locations a tropical island would have down to the level design balancing traditional platformer design and environments that feel real. Every area in these levels has context. There's a reason for all this stuff to be here. Of course a hotel would have a kitchen. Aerto Rock is a town, so yeah, it has a market. The Piantas made a home in the Pianta Pit, and obviously with that Trample and Stew, they're gonna build their houses high up. Sunshine did all of this too, so I think you know what I'm trying to say here. Worship Island may not have that vacation vibe specifically, but hey, I can still see an island having a place like this, and it's still designed in a more grounded way. A lot of them do tend to be smaller than what you see in base Sunshine, but I think they otherwise knocked it out of the park with making them fit in with the original game as best as possible. One of the things that differentiates these levels compared to the ones in the base game is how you go about acquiring the new nozzles. In the original game, to unlock the nozzle in a level, you just needed to find the original box to unlock all of the holographic ones within that level, while the ones in Eclipse don't really work that way. Instead, you have to unlock the nozzles in the plaza first. This is done purely out of flag limitations, but I can see this being very confusing to players who've only played the original Sunshine. I can imagine trying to scour a level for hours trying to find that source nozzle block, but it's just not there anywhere. Okay, I should probably talk about the actual Shine Sprites within these levels now. The new levels try to find a balance between the story-based Shine Sprites from the original game and the more open-ended shines Sunburn clearly wanted that you can just get whenever. Episodes 1, 6, 7, and 8 are usually story-related, with 7 always being Shadow Mario chases just like the original game, and you can't get the open-ended shines within those episodes. So episodes 2, 3, 4, and 5 are usually shines that don't rely on some level-altering event to exist. So this is where you find all the red coin shines, the secret stage shines, and of course a lot of the other stuff like playing basketball in arcade, completing some platforming challenges, and eating all the fish in the river with Yoshi. I think this is a nice balance of the two styles, even if it's not consistent with the base game. Seeing how the ultimate goal of this game is to get every Shadow Mario shine, you can easily skip a lot of the shines in this just by getting whatever open-ended shine is the last on the list, so you can just move on to the next story shine. Though I don't really think that's that big of a deal, especially because because every Shine Sprite actually helps you in this, unlike the original. A lot of the story shines are really cool, like the first episode of Hotel La Crema has you infiltrating the Mafia's base and taking on their army of stolen stews, and even delivering pizzas complete with the exact music I know you're thinking of. Lighthouse Island has you take on a corrupted Shine Sprite in the lighthouse to clear up the perpetual storm that Shine Sprite boss is fully accustomed to, and it's genuinely really cool. It moves around in a pretty wild pattern, spin dashing super fast, bouncing from wall to wall, leaving goop everywhere. You beat it by diving into the brief window it's tired and ground pounded right after. The fight itself is kinda standard 3D platformer design, but I think it's a fun enough idea to carry it. I was so caught off by this because I didn't even know fully custom Sunshine bosses were possible. And I just think the idea of a corrupted Shine Sprite is so cool. I want more games with the end goal assaults you. Another story shine has you blooper surfing once again. It's hosted by this fake Bloopy though. You'll never be him. But I wanted more Bloopy, the big daddy of blooper surfing. I love this man for his dumb name alone. He's married? Okay, this one's actually not a story shine, so it doesn't really fit here, but screw you, I'm talking about it now anyway. Yeah, you beat his wife and child in the booty scooting minigame found in La Crema. The very first version of this had a pretty terrible camera and invisible death planes everywhere, which made it hard to tell what cuts would lead to you saving time and which ones would lead to death. Since then, the camera has dramatically improved. They removed the invisible death planes and they gave the level a major glow up. It looks so much better now. Looking back at the first version, these are very clearly placeholder assets they just did not have time to actually replace. However, without the death planes, you can easily skip most of this slide and just jump from checkpoint to checkpoint, which is a shame. Of course, Shadow Mario chases are back and they tend to be brief, just like the base game. I'm honestly really only talking about this because Aerotos interestingly brings back the unused sinking goop type from the original. I could be wrong on this because I actually missed this during my initial playthrough entirely, but I think this might be the only level that uses that goop type. Kind of a shame. I'm happy this is back at all, but I feel like this had a lot more potential than that. The open-ended shines are usually great too. The secret levels, just like the base game, remain some of the best levels in the game. The one in Aeroto Rock maintains the same kind of design you see in the base game, but they get more experimental with both visuals and design. The one in La Crema has an extremely different design mentality, having many different paths to get to the main goal. And the one on Worship has this cool pirate theme and uses these platforms pulled right from Battle for Bikini Bottom. This one using the pirate theme makes me wonder if that's intentional. Lighthouse differs from the one in the base game by being weirdly hard. I've seen the developers say that their goal with the Isle Delfino levels was to be consistent with the difficulty from the original, and I do think they succeeded for the most part, but I don't think they did that with this one at all. I do love this, don't get me wrong, but this final jump in Lighthouses is gonna drive casual players insane. There's an option for infinite lives in the settings, just an FYI, or you could just do the golf shine instead so you can skip to the next story shine right after. But yeah, this is brutal. Pianta Pit is actually entirely made of these open-ended shines, not having a Shadow Mario chase or even an episode select at all, making it the one fully optional main level in Isle Delfino. I think it having the more open structure fits this level really well. It being an undocumented part of the island that's also a giant dense forest level where it's easy to get lost just makes so much sense to emphasize the exploration over episodic shines. I think they're pretty fun too, like one has you navigating around the aforementioned crazed chucksters, one has you dousing the flames of this man's god, and another has you climbing from inside this giant tree. The camera may suck majorly, but it's not that hard using wide-cam to fix it, and it's just a cool set piece, so I think it was worth it. Of course, there's also red coin shines in a lot of these levels. There's not a lot to say on them because you should know what to expect if you played the original, but I do want to highlight a couple changes that were made in version 1.0.3. Warship's red coins were originally very scattered, requiring the player to basically explore every inch of this surprisingly big level, which wasn't great, but they have since made it so much better by isolating all these coins onto these mountains, giving them far more of a purpose than before and just making the shines so much less tedious. Absolutely a great change. Airtos were also pretty scattered and hidden, but now it's not nearly as annoying trying to find all of them. I do kind of wish they kept the red coin in this tunnel just for the sake of maintaining its purpose, because I don't think there's actually any reason to go in there now if you have a decent grasp on this game's movement. Anyway, these are all fun, but I do have problems with a lot of them. The very first new level I played, like many, was Airto Rock. The very first episode throws you into a Piantas in Need type shine, where some of Corona Mountain's lava spill over and now a bunch of Piantas and Nokis need to be cleaned up under a time limit. The difference is Piantas in Need was episode 6 of Pianta Village, giving the player plenty of time to learn the level before throwing them into a time challenge like this. Airto Rock did not give you this luxury, leading to a pretty annoying first shine. They have since swapped episodes 1 and 6 to address this, which is a huge improvement. Originally, this episode was time 2, complete with camera pans to spots you couldn't possibly know, but they've since removed the timer, so I'm fine with this. I don't love how close the original episode 1 is to episode 8 now, though. It's only 2 shines apart now, with the only real difference being contextual. Now playing hide and seek over saving lives, but you're still doing the exact same thing, trying to find a bunch of NPCs under a time limit. Beyond that, I think too many shines in this game just have no meat on them. I'm gonna bully Airto Rock again because this rock you crush with a high ground pound has a shine and it's just out in the open. The one in the plaza was at least on top of the lighthouse, a very out of the way spot. But here, the only challenge is having the rocket nozzle unlocked in the plaza already, which you don't actually need, otherwise there's nothing to this. This feels much more like a hidden shine, but it's not. It's a main episode shine. To bring up an even more offensive example, there's just a Shine Sprite hanging out on top of one of the ships in Warship. This is yet another main episode shine, but it doesn't even feel like a hidden shine in Sunshine, but rather a moon from Odyssey. Hotel La Crema has an episode where you just copy this watermelon formation, and it takes no time at all and isn't particularly fun, though I do love that he gets mad at you for breaking more after the shine is already spawned. There's so many other examples, but I think you get the idea. This is clearly a problem because they wanted to reach that shine count each level had in the original game, but I don't think it was worth it. It's not like the worst thing. I would never try to argue the original game wasn't guilty of padding either, and these are at least very brief, but still. There's also a few shines that are less brief, mostly on Warship. The very first shine wants you to blow up these balloons from Finding Nemo with bottle rockets. It's really cool having a new episode like episode 8 of Peanut Park, but on foot. But I've seen so many people complain about this, spending way too much time on this one. It's really not nearly as bad if you know how these actually work, but most people understandably don't. If you hold the R button halfway down and then press it all the way down once you actually want to shoot it, the rocket will go straight every time. If you just press it all the way down right away, it'll usually have a skew in its trajectory. I don't know why it works this way, but it does. They've since sort of fixed it by making it go straight every time, but there's now a delay to it, so this is actually worse if you're familiar how the original works. Not by a ton, it's really only a slight delay, and it's still more intuitive, meaning new players will hate this mission less, so it's still a good change overall that'll help more people than it hinders. They also changed it so that it doesn't just blow up on its own when it touches a wall, and that's only a good change. That was absurdly annoying. Anyway, my actual problem with this shine is that even if it doesn't take too long to do this, it's still not interesting to play. You're really just positioning yourself on the same 2 ships and shooting out rockets, so it's kinda whatever. It's a fun scenario at least. Same with this mission where you're just picking up cannonballs and throwing them into this crate. It's just kinda tedious. I don't mind either of these 2 all that much, but they still do take a bit longer than other episodes I find kinda weak. This level also has an episode where you just need to kill a bunch of stew enemies in the facility. I don't think it's awful or anything, but it's very whatever. This was also when I first saw these faster green stew variants. I don't know what they're actually called, but I've been calling them hyper stews, like the Paper Mario enemy type. Another thing I noticed I'm a bit disappointed about is that none of these levels really try to tell an overarching story about bringing these levels back to their former glory. That was the thing that while not every vanilla level did, most of them did to some extent, especially Noki Bay. Lighthouse Island sorta attempts this with the first episode being about a perpetual storm, and yes, this is what I want more of. However, it only takes the one Shine Sprite to fix it, and it's back to being just as pretty as it always was by episode 2. Not really what I'm talking about here. They do have cleaning be a part of some episodes, which at least touches on that environmental theming the original has, but it lacks the same kind of progression. I suppose you can argue that Darkness is fulfilling that role on a much greater scale, but that's not really what I'm talking about. I do want to make it clear that I still really enjoyed the vast majority of shines in this game, and the ones that I didn't were pretty brief. And I may have my grievances with some areas failing to fully recapture Sunshine's shines, I still think they did a much better job than they have any right to. I'm just a gigantic fan of the original game and will notice these things more than others. One area I feel they initially nailed in trying to recapture what the original game did are the blue coins, and I promise I actually mean that in a good way, at least to me. They're not handled exactly the same, but I think the changes are for the better, and they managed to retain the things I liked about them. Only 18 of the 120 new Shine Sprites are from the blue coins, with the new levels in Isle Delfino only having 20 per stage instead of 30. And none of them are in the same level of obscurity as Ground Pound, one of like 20 slot machines. But don't get me wrong, many of these are still pretty obscure. The vast majority of them are easy enough to find, but every stage has one or two that'll leave you stumped. There's still plenty that require spraying random objects. Some of them are pretty cleverly designed, like this one in Hotel La Crema. I sprayed this one plant while trying to get into the vent on accident and got a 1-up. Then I thought to spray the one in the opposite hallway and got a blue coin. That's some really smart game design right there. Spraying the sponge and starfish on Lighthouse Island should be second nature to anyone emotionally scarred by the SpongeBob movie. There's this one guy in Naruto that tells you to not spray this wall, there's nothing on it. You lying little. However, there are so many that I didn't see any indication for. There's guides now, but back when I got everything, there wasn't. I had to either hope someone on the Discord server had already said where they were, or just kept wandering around until I found it myself. I may sound like I'm complaining, but no, I actually love this. I know this sounds weird, but let me explain. I first 100% completed Super Mario Sunshine when I was about 11, so 15 years ago now. After I did that, I felt compelled to do it again right away. I didn't know exactly why, other than the fact that I love the game, of course, but I couldn't attach a more specific reason to it. As a 26-year-old who is far more aware of why I love the things that I do, I finally get it. Super Mario Sunshine's obscure blue coins make the game far more replayable to me. When I completed Eclipse, the thought of getting every blue coin again excited me because I knew I could do better. A lot better. I wanted to see myself get better. I wanted to memorize all those spots just as I have for the original game years ago, and of course it takes multiple playthroughs to really memorize this stuff to the greatest extent that you can, considering how hard it is to find all of these. That journey is so fun to me, but it's one I haven't been a part of in years. The original blue coins are not just burned into my memory, they're burned into my soul. And of course I got to that point when I was still a kid who didn't think about this stuff critically. I was never able to see how big of a part the more cryptic blue coins played into my early years of really obsessing over this game. I've long been on the very popular side of these specific blue coins sucking, and more objectively speaking, they do. But now I kinda love that about them and always have, even if I wasn't aware. The fact that Eclipse was able to show me that about my favorite game, a game I assumed I fully understood why I loved for years now, is genuinely so cool. And yeah, I acknowledge that this is a me-specific thing. The vast majority of people very understandably hate this kind of design. I'm absolutely the weirdo in this situation. But those people will be pleased to know that this is no longer the case. Starting with version 1.0.3, they started to add all these signs pointing to blue coins everywhere. They added mods to lamps that have blue coins in both Lighthouse and La Crema. They added a circle of flowers to that cliff in Naruto. They added goop for every spray the ground blue coin they could, and so on. This is objectively for the better, but I'll miss the stupid BS blue coins from the earlier versions. I'm quite possibly the only person who wants the cryptic blue coins back, so I'm not gonna act like this isn't a good thing, nor will I act like having these signs that actually give you some idea on where these might be completely kills the replayability factor I was talking about. I still have an additional 180 blue coins to memorize. I just felt like the cryptic ones made that process harder and therefore more fun to me. I did still struggle with some of them on my second playthrough, so I still have room to improve, which once again is exciting to me. I don't know how open the Eclipse team is to changing the base game, but maybe they should do this with the cryptic blue coins from the vanilla game too, just for the sake of consistency and frustrating newer players less. I do also want to point out that if you're struggling with a blue coin still, even with the new hints, the Eclipse team is putting together a Prima-inspired strategy guide for this game. As of writing this, it still isn't out, but we have seen glimpses of it, and oh my god, I love this. They really captured the exact vibe that those strategy guys used to have, and I'm really looking forward to reading through it, even if I've already 100%ed this game twice. So that's more or less everything I have to say about Isle Delfino, but I am still very far from being done. Once you beat Bowser, you can find a new Pianta in the plaza that'll take you to Daisy Cruiser, a new hub world with a new set of levels. Yeah, I haven't even covered like half of the new content yet. I was a little iffy on Daisy Cruiser, a track from Mario Kart Kart Double Dash being used as a level in a 3D platformer, but the demo showed me that they did a surprisingly good job at fleshing this track out enough to be a competent 3D platformer level. They used a lot of the background scenery from the original track in this for secrets, like you got the shipping containers and pipes in the boiler room, under the staircase, the top of the ship, and even the unused hallway. It helps that Daisy Cruiser has a lot of turns, so it's not like there's a lot of straightaways where nothing's happening. I still think it would have been better to take the theme of Daisy Cruiser and design a hub from the ground up, rather than take a level from a racing game and force it in a 3D platformer. But it honestly does work surprisingly well as is, and I do love the Mario Kart Double Dash representation. Within this hub, these levels go for something different compared to the rest of the game. The new levels in Isle Delfino were aiming to replicate the same kind of thing the original levels were going for, but these ones are a lot more loose. Some of them do kind of feel like something you might see in the original Sunshine, but others go for something wildly different. Each of them only have 5 shines and 10 blue coins per level too. I actually like this considering a lot of the new shines in Isle Delfino felt like they were just there for the sake of increasing that level's number. But none of these Shine Sprites felt like padding at all to me, so I just couldn't say the same thing here. The levels also tend to avoid the story-based shines in most cases, allowing you to get all 5 and just immediately leave after. There's a secret level within Daisy Cruiser itself, and hey, here's a level from the second demo. They've thankfully removed some of the more brutal sections in it, but there's still a lot of waiting. Yeah, I'm still not a fan of this one, but I enjoy it when I'm actually doing things. I enjoy the novel idea too, like how you're riding these planes around, or how you ride a train on a train track that you would normally only see in the background of these levels. That's neat. Okay, the first full level I'm going to cover is Casino Game Table, or Spectro Casino, which means Spectrum, by the way. I felt gaslit when I first read this title again, but no, this is just a name change that they made in 1.0.3. Definitely for the better, Casino Game Table is a pretty terrible name. This is a really cool one. The level takes place in a giant casino table with cards, glasses with drinks, and casino chips. There's also a giant Jenga tower. I was not aware people gambled with Jenga, but it makes for some really fun platforming. The only part I disliked was this giant chessboard. It's very flat and not very interesting to traverse. And even worse, they scatter a bunch of red coins under the fire coop, so there's a lot of blindly spraying around until you find all of them. Yeah, this isn't fun at all, but the secret level you find around here is at least. It's a great level all around, I just don't like that one part. Mario's Dream is a really cool one. Visually, it's one of the best looking things in this game, but it's also really fun. It's kind of designed like the later levels in Mario 64, like Rainbow Ride being very platforming focused, but it's also a lot more open and shines don't boot you out, leading to a much more fun level. There's some really fun and creative challenges here, like this one red coin section where you have to repeatedly ride this elevator thing up to try to get every one of them. And this level even starts with a rocket balloon challenge. This is easily the best one since there's a stronger focus in platforming in this compared to the one in Warship, and obviously the one in Peanut Park. This is just a great level all around, I love it. Once you get enough shines, you get access to levels within the captain's quarters. And the first one I entered was Peach Beach, and this is the worst level in the game. The whole thing I said about Daisy Cruiser working surprisingly well as a 3D platformer level does not at all apply here. There are huge straightaways where nothing happens at all. They do give you this turbo nozzle, but this still is not fun to explore when nothing's happening, especially with all these invisible walls. I get why they chose to put Peach Beach and Sunshine. That track does have heavy Mario Sunshine influence, but I think they really should have given this level an overhaul to fit the gameplay. I do like the one shine where you're turboing through the track under a time limit. That was fun, and I think them recreating the original track's tide system is pretty cool and probably took a lot of work. I also love how the boost pads make you zoom around. Okay, so in Sunshine, there's this thing called a momentum spin jump. It's when you roll out onto a slope, get into this weird state where Mario runs really fast, and then you spin jump out of that with a wider turn and zoom away. It's really powerful. But look at this. This is so fun. Dude, I want a custom level entirely built around this. I didn't have a bad time with this level overall, to be clear. Like, it was alright. I don't think it's a horrible level or anything, but it is still very clearly the worst one. But at the very least, it is a very high quality stage port. I'd say this level is actually about as good as it possibly could be considering the circumstances. I just think turning Peach Beach into a full-on Mario Sunshine level is just a bad idea. I think every other level is fantastic though. Vaporwave has a pretty lame same name, but the aesthetic here is phenomenal. This stage was also in the demo, but it looks so much cooler here. This is another more platforming focused level, but it's also really good. They have these cool platforms that change your nozzle, so you have to find your way to the rocket one to progress. There's another part where you need to platform with both the rocket and turbo nozzle, which I feel like was almost never done in the original. And there's this other part where you're racing up these small platforms to get the shine in time, and when you look down, it's a giant Shine Sprite. That's just a really cool set piece. Great level, I really loved this one. Lancia Freda Peaks, yet again another level from the demos, both actually. Lancia Freda Peaks is keeping up with that Italian naming scheme, this one translating to Cold Spear Peaks. And yeah, once again, getting repetitive here, but I like this one a lot too. I compare this one's design to some of the levels from Mario 64, like Bob-omb Battlefield or Snowman's Land, with this level mostly being open, but having one or two linear-ish platforming challenges in the center. This one also has a pretty great vibe to it. I really love the colors here, the icy effect, the icebergs, and look, there's a moon. That's a rare sight in Sunshine. There's a lot of these funnel clouds spread throughout the level, and they're genuinely so much fun to use, especially when you jump from under them. These were horrible in Demo 1 though, just putting that out there. Oh yeah, there's this part where you can clip through the tunnel through a mountain and you can see this thing down here. I don't know what this is. Yoshi Village is the next one I want to talk about here. When you first get here, everything is on fire with fire groups spread everywhere. You get in the center of the village and there's a Fire Petey, a new remix version of Petey Piranha. Yep, we got another custom fight here, even if it's not fully custom. I think this is a pretty great evolution on the second Petey fight, especially considering how much more deadly Fire Goop is compared to the Brown Goop in Bianco. They also made him much faster in general, so I actually got him to vomit a few times. I don't love how long it can take for him to stop. It kind of feels like I'm just following his shadow throughout a good chunk of this fight. And this fight was comically broken in version 1.0.1 and 1.0.2. The whole post-game literally wasn't even accessible in version 1.0, but that's another thing. He just froze on me multiple times. It took me like 3 attempts before I could actually beat him without freezing. Also, I totally forgot that I discovered the PD crotch clip. And the boss music wouldn't even play most of the time. Most of these issues were fixed in version 1.0.3, but weirdly the boss music still doesn't play, instead the normal level theme does. So I got this super happy song playing while the island is being terrorized. Still better than playing in silence, I guess, which is what I had to deal with before. Other than all of that, I do like this fight. As it stands, I'd really just like if they made him stop more frequently. This level is pretty fantastic across the board aside from all of that though. This is another level I feel is more in line with Sunshine's design, but on a smaller scale, with this one being a believable location and it starts off in ruin when you get there. This really is a fantastic level with wonderful visuals and music and some of the best design in the game. I love exploring this place and the Shine Sprites are consistently great. I especially love how they use that weird mechanic where enemies turn into platforms after being doused in Yoshi's throat excretions. The original game literally required that once, but it's used 3 times in this level alone. You have to pay attention to what color you're using too, while the original game did the thinking for you. It's a small thing, but I'm also a big fan of the level darkening and brightening up over time due to the overcast. That's a cool detail. I noticed there's a path that goes through this Mario World styled Yoshi house that leads to a wall, and if you clip the camera past it, there's a path back there? That had to be something at some point. The secret level here is really cool too, being a huge reference to all the classic Mario games. I even jumped off Yoshi here to save my life like a true gamer. They have supers here too. They're reskins of Plurps, so they poop, but they look cool doing it. We have some Strollin' Stews reskinned to be Goombas too. Yeah, it's so weird that Goombas weren't in the original Mario Sunshine. I mean, unless you count Cug, I guess. Oh yeah, I also want to point out that you can see Peach Beach from here, and vice versa. It turns out these 2 levels are located in Isle Grancio, that crab island from the intro, and that tease I got excited about in the second demo. So we got 2 levels, and one of which is the worst one. Can't say I'm not disappointed. But hey, at least this one's fantastic. This is definitely one of the best levels in the game. As for the actual best level in the game, we got Red Lily City. Yeah, I really love this one. If I were to rank it against the original Sunshine levels, the only one I'd put it behind is Noki Bay, which is extremely high praise coming from me. This one has some of the most fun design and theming in the whole game. It's a giant town on top of a rock with bubbles floating everywhere and some seriously dense level design. There are so many different sections. There's a playground, a fountain on the very top, a statue surrounded by storefronts, a cafeteria, broken down pipes, the one part that reminds me of Autumn Plains because I have spiral brain rot, rooftops to jump around on, which is always fun, clotheslines to bounce off of, and so much more. You race Il Piantissimo's rival, La Nocia. Words cannot explain how much I love this added lore. I really think that this is one of the most thoroughly fun to explore and traverse levels I've played in a video game. I kinda hated this maze section when I first played the game, but you literally just go through this pipe, and then this one, and you're done. This part where you have to ride bubbles for a blue coin and another for a shine sprite does suck though. They are just so slow and it takes so long for another to spawn. Other than that, this level is perfection. I genuinely love it so much, I really can't praise this one enough. The blue coins are much easier to find in these two. I didn't end up consulting the Discord at all for this and even found all of them in some levels before getting every shine. There were a few that gave me trouble, such as this blue shine graphic in Yoshi Village, but they replaced it with an M in 1.0.3. I saw a lot of people struggle with this blue shine graphic in Peach Beach, but I actually found that by accident immediately within episode 1 just by turboing over it. No, the one that gave me trouble was weirdly this M under this phallic rock. I really don't feel like I should have struggled with that one as much as I did. This random Cataquack and Vaporwave is the only other one that gave me any trouble, otherwise these were actually pretty easy. That makes sense though, seeing how these levels in general go for something entirely different from the base game, so it makes sense to cut those spray the random object in a blue coin spawn blues entirely for these. I didn't spend nearly as much time on these levels looking for blue coins as I did for the levels in Isle Delfino, which wouldn't be as bad as you might think because that means I could listen to these songs more. Dude, I nailed that transition. But seriously, this game does have an excellent soundtrack. It uses the Sunshine sound font, so it all fits really well with the rest of the game. Airtoe Rock was an early highlight for me. It has major Sunshine vibes, but it's also a really catchy and upbeat song. Lighthouse Island was absolutely my favorite on Isle Delfino. It has 3 variants depending on the state of the level you're at, and uses Delfino Plaza's theme for a large chunk of the song, which works so well considering the original game had multiple levels do that. The post-game is where the soundtrack really shines though. Mario's Dream is an excellent song, probably my favorite in the whole game. It straight up sounds like a song from Mario Galaxy. Actually, scratch that. I think Spatro Casino is my favorite. Like, I think this is my favorite casino song ever now. I also really love Yoshi's Village. It very much sounds like a song from a Yoshi game, but still fits in Sunshine perfectly. I also really love the music for Hotel Lacrima's interior, the Mafia basement, all the junctions, Lancia, Freda Peak, both songs in Vaporwave, especially the Vaporwave remix of Delfino Plaza, and Red Lily City. Dude, they even have a Platforms Aplenty arrangement of the Mario 2 Overworld theme. That's so cool. Even the song made exclusively for the trailer sounds great. They put so much effort into this. I should point out that Demo 2 had a different composer, D. Dumpy, and none of that music made it into this game, unfortunately. I actually really love that music, especially the song for Lancia Freda Peaks, but the songs we actually got just fit Sunshine better, so I'm overall fine with this. I did ask the composer D. Dumpy themselves in one of their YouTube videos if there's any way to listen to that old music anymore, and they said they want to release it as an album down the line, so look forward to that. I know I am, because I still really love the old stuff too. But yeah, I am absolutely blown away with this game's soundtrack. It is so uncommon for a ROM hack soundtrack to actually be original. The vast majority majority of them tend to pull music from other games, but this one does have original music, and it is fantastic. There are some issues with the new songs, I should say. First off, the new music does not work on Nintendo, due to Nintendo not supporting streamed audio for Sunshine. So it doesn't seem like the Eclipse team has much control over that. The audio being streamed and not sequenced also means that none of the new songs have bongo drums for Yoshi, which is unfortunate. I also think some uses of these songs can be a bit ill-fitting, like Fire Shrine still uses the menacing Corona Mountain theme despite being a spot for worship, and Yoshi's Village still uses the super happy music when it's on fire, which is a bit weird. That's about it, just some technical issues with no solutions as of now, and a couple cases where I think new tracks might be a bit better. Otherwise, I think this is an excellent soundtrack, and while I don't know if I would say I prefer it to Sunshine, there's at least more songs here that I like. But man, the original game had Deep Sea of Mare, you're not beating that. I gotta talk about the writing too, because there's a lot to like here. They carry Sunshine's torch of having NPCs having their own stories, or at the very least, a lot of charm. Like, we got these two Piantas in Hotel Lacrima, with one of them being into the other, but she's too afraid of getting hurt again. In later episodes, he suspects this, and says he felt like he walked into a soap opera. There's this Noki in the same level sitting outside his room door that says, "Don't ask if you talk to him." But then a later episode says it was apparently a bad idea showing his girlfriend a horror movie. There's a lot of good one-offs too, like Pianta Pit has a dancing Pianta around these mushrooms claiming they want the rainbow animals to go away. Another says his brother auditioned for the succulent seafood ad from the beginning of the game. Another questions if they're poisoning the water supply after telling you they wash their clothes through this waterfall that comes from the village above. They unfortunately cut that one Pianta from Demo 1 that I praised in the other video, but I think these are good enough to make up for that. I absolutely love this Pianta in Red Lily City on the rooftop that says, "Okay, but like, surely you also feel the urge to jump off too, right?" What? I think my favorite is the one in Rico Station. He recognizes Mario from the Wanted posters and just throws him back into Rico Harbor out of anger. Like, dude, that is so funny. I really don't love that there's a few Piantas that ask you to do something and it's just flavor text. Like that one Pianta in Lighthouse Island that asks you to get rid of all the Pokies and Piranha plants. I spent a lot of time actually doing that just to find out that's just flavor text. There's not that many Piantas in this game that do that, but yeah, this is a trap I fell into a few times. Okay, so I'm editing this right now, and I just noticed that a lot of the female Piantas lack a flower on their tree, which they're supposed to have. I noticed it with some of them when playing this game, but looking at this footage, yeah, a lot of them don't have one. I really loved how they gave Flood some flavor text in this game. In the original, they only gave him some tutorials to say and a couple PSAs. But they're more of a real character in this, like apparently they've always wanted to gamble. I love this character exploration. I actually really like the writing in this game. I think it was pretty solid all throughout. Well, Peach Beach excluded. Before 1.0.3, Peach Beach was loaded with grammatical errors like typos and lack of capitalization and punctuation. I appreciate the mention of Rogueport, but the disrespect of not treating it like the proper noun that it is got to me emotionally. 23. This has since been fixed, but it was super jarring how everyone had what I would assume was placeholder dialogue in that stage, and that stage alone. While we're on the topic of writing and world building, I do want to talk about the cutscenes too. All of the original cutscenes are in this game, but they're often edited or even rearranged to better fit what Eclipse is going for. Cutscenes are usually made to be darker to better fit the stronger emphasis on the darkness in this game. And shots of Delfino Plaza are even brightened around the Shine Gate. The Peanut Park cutscene weirdly being the exception here, I don't know why. Some shots don't have the new levels added, which makes sense because all of this is done through video editing only, seeing how these are modified versions of pre-rendered cutscenes. Though the new levels are present in some of them, I assume that's because this is a static shot and this is not. They interestingly re-added the cut music from the PD cutscene on top of the windmill too. I also noticed the subtitles are very mismatched in this one scene. The only real issue I have, and it's an unavoidable one, is that these cutscenes are much more compressed than the ones in the original, which is saying a lot. This is because Eclipse is a big game, and video files take up a ton of space. This just had to be done in order to fit everything within the GameCube's limitations. I'm about to get into some spoiler territory here. If you'd rather see the rearranged or new cutscenes for yourself, I recommend skipping to this point in the video. There are far bigger spoilers, which is why I'm not including this in the big boy spoiler section, but I do talk about 100% completion a little bit here, so just a little bit of a warning. I don't really think it's that big of a deal, but you know, just in case. Like I said, the cutscenes are rearranged a bit too to better fit the story tweaks made to this game. Just as an example, you don't see the Piantas dancing around the Shine Gate when you get the normal ending. Instead, it cuts to a new cutscene and then the Serena Beach scene. And you only get that dancing Pianta scene once you 100% the game. I don't think certain elements flow as well because of this, like this transition feels a lot more abrupt, but it overall works pretty well. And yeah, like I said, there's fully new cutscenes in this too, specifically one after you unlock Piantissimo, and another once you beat the original game's final boss. The initial one is Piantissimo realizing he's way better off as Mario's friend rather than his rival, and it's really charming. I'm definitely a big fan of this one. The other is inspired by the original game's normal ending where you see Piantissimo on the beach looking at Bowser Jr.'s paintbrush, but now he throws it and it shatters on impact. You can actually see the paintbrush in that exact spot in Gelato Beach after that point. These are both really good, I think. They don't match the original game's cutscene style, but that's because they're animated a lot better. Though it does bother me you can see the sparkles from the game's HUD in the top left of the screen at all times. But otherwise, they did a great job on these. Okay, so normally when I put spoiler warnings in my videos, I really just do it just in case. I know that most people don't care if I spoil the final boss to a 3D platformer. However, I'm just saying this now. Super Mario Eclipse has one of the best 100% rewards I have ever seen in any video game, so if you have any intentions on doing that yourself, I highly advise on clicking out now. I would be so upset if the surprise was robbed from me, and I would never want to do that to someone else. Alright, spoilers begin now. Alright, this is where the real spoilers begin. Super Mario Eclipse has a custom final boss and it completely blew me away. When you get 239 Shine Sprites, Bowser attacks the plaza out of frustration for Mario ruining his vacation. A Pianta frantically informs Mario of what is going on and says the 240th Shine Sprite won't be born if Bowser continues wreaking havoc. However, if someone stops Bowser, the newest Shine Sprite will be birthed and repair the plaza instantly. You go around Delfino Plaza and see it storming hard. The music is somber and threatening, and the plaza is in absolute ruin. Everything is on fire, buildings are toppled over, bricks are scattered everywhere, the lighthouse is just a stump, chunks of the Shine Gate are missing, the pipe to Serena Beach is shattered, the bell tower is in the ocean, and the whole town is evacuated. Meanwhile, Bowser is continuing to destroy everything in his clown car, throwing bombs everywhere, setting things on fire, and shooting bullet bills wherever he can. And oh my god, the music! I mentioned this way back in my Banjo-Tooie video years ago, but this right here is one of my favorite tropes. I love seeing an iconic area in ruin like this, especially if it's known for its happy vibes and safety, especially if it's one I've known for years. One that I've gotten to know on a very deep level, one with so many memories tied to, one where I've spent an ungodly amount of time just messing around in, and one that I love. Needless to say at this point, on a very personal level, this is literally the most potent area any game ever could have applied this trope to. I have spent so much time just jumping from rooftop to rooftop, not really doing anything in particular as a kid, and even now, maneuvering through this plaza is something I've been doing for basically my whole life. So I've apparently been training for this fight for the past 22 years. Suddenly I'm doing that very thing, but now in a very different context where there's actual danger and a real goal to strive for. This fight is honestly just fine aside from all of that. You have to use Bowser's bombs or bullet bills to blow up these crates and then use the bottle rockets within them to blow up Bowser. It's a good concept. I do love making long shots like this that felt really good, but his flying pattern seems to be the same coding as the second PD fight, so he kinda just goes wherever he wants. I don't mind this in the PD fight, but here you specifically need Bowser in the same 3 spots in the plaza to actually progress the fight, because there are only 3 crates. I think this could potentially be solved simply by adding more crates in the plaza, which would result in a lot less waiting. The second phase has you spraying him, short-circuiting the clown car, and throwing one of his bombs at him. I don't like how long it can take for one of the bombs to actually land in a viable spot, and he doesn't seem to have any iframes, so you can just shock him again immediately after hitting him the first time. Do this twice and you're done. I do genuinely love so much about this fight, and I really do believe it's so close to being one of the best boss fights I've ever played in a 3D platformer. It's a boss fight with an absurdly cool setting and heavily relies on your ability to traverse one of the best hub worlds of any video game. I do still really love this fight, but I can't pretend the dependence on RNG and waiting isn't a big issue. In my mind, all the good more than makes up for the bad, but I am very obviously speaking from a biased perspective here. It was also a pretty buggy fight in earlier versions. My first time beating it, the camera bugged and I didn't get to see his death animation. I played the fight a second time just to record the death animation properly, but then it broke in a completely different way where the game acted like he was dead when he clearly wasn't. I didn't actually get to see his death animation until I beat him on 1.0.4. I don't have any footage of it, but I know that in version 1.0.3, if he shot Bowser with a rocket, he would just abruptly disappear, rendering the fight impossible to beat. Also, this happened to me. I don't know about that clip, but every other issue here seems to have been ironed out since version 1.0.4. This is a custom boss in a game that I wasn't even aware could even have custom bosses to begin with by a bunch of fans making it for free, so I'm not trying to be hard on anyone here, but I do feel like all of this is worth noting. Once you do beat Bowser, the 240th Shine Sprite spawns from Corona Mountain. The original game's ending plays, and credits. Okay, small thing, but I would have loved to see a lengthened credit sequence. Obviously with all the Eclipse developers and new vacation photos, that would be so cool to see. Maybe even an extended version of this amazing song? That's probably asking for too much. Oh look, a new postcard! Believe it or not, that's actually not all you get for getting all 240 Shine Sprites. Starting off with a small thing, you get a new Delfino Plaza state, complete with a shining Shine Sprite on the Shine Gate and all the Piantas dancing, just like the ending cutscene. Where's my Noki Elder clones? The Pianta that was stranded on that island for years even says he's going to take swimming lessons. Oh my god, he can finally go back. As for the thing that actually got me to put that spoiler warning there, you get a full remake of the entire Super Mario 64 hub, remade with graphics that surpass Super Mario Galaxy, complete with its own lineup of levels cut from both the original game and Eclipse. Why is this so cool? Okay, I didn't mention this, but you actually get to see the courtyard itself in the very beginning of the game, but now you can explore the whole castle. Yeah, this is the entire castle. The courtyard, the backyard, the Yoshi on the roof, the foyer, the basement, upstairs, the clock room, even the 64DS exclusive rooms. They even have the void past the door in the mirror room. Oh my god, this is so cool. All of it is there. That is so much effort. They just remade an entire hub world complete with a museum of cut content, and only a tiny fraction of the player base will ever play it. I just have to respect that so hard. As for the levels here, you can find them in all the same places you'd find the levels in the original game. Every painting, wall, portal, whatever has a level here. The only exception being the wing cap level entrance. You'd think they just reused Noki Bay's level entrance for that, but maybe there's a reason for that? I don't know, I'm not a Sunshine modder, things could be more complicated than that. The levels themselves are cut levels, like I said before. We got some cut levels from the original Sunshine, like we have the Space World iterations of both Delfino Plaza and Bianco Hills, which are very wildly different compared to what we actually got. I said this back in my other video, but exploring these versions of these levels is an actual dream to me. I remember seeing the Space World trailer for the first time ever, my little mind being blown so hard. I wanted nothing more but to explore these versions of these levels, and I finally have that, thank you! We got some later, but still very early iterations of Bianco Hills, like this one that looks wildly different, but actually has a really similar but condensed layout. This is where I noticed they brought back the Duck Cloud skybox from earlier versions of Sunshine, and I coincidentally ran out of water in that moment, which makes Flood make duck quacks if you didn't know. Another one is the E3 version, which isn't too different compared to what we actually got. Same with this Delfino Plaza. Let me check if I can still... Yep, yeah, I can. I didn't even get stuck this time. I love that Pianta that's screaming at an empty wall, wanting it to feel special by putting something important there, like a wanted poster. This guy is just never happy. It's weird seeing these chunks of the island being so naked. There's only one early version of Rico Harbor, and this one seems to be basically a much emptier and more slimmed down version of what we got. I don't actually know what stage of development this is from, but it seems to be pretty early, but obviously not Space World early. No, this is Space World Rico Harbor. You can see it pretty clearly from Space World Bianco Hills. I don't know how Nintendo intended on making this a full level at any point, but that's also probably why the Eclipse team didn't make this fully explorable. There's also an early version of the Noki Bay secret stage, but it's mostly the same but with different visuals and faster platforms. I know these are all recreations based on various footage, pictures, and data left in the files, but these all seem to be pretty accurate recreations based on what I know. I'm gonna be honest, I don't recognize that Rico Harbor at all, but that could just be a gap in my knowledge. I do recognize that blue goof blooper though. It is so interesting to finally get a closer look in these levels, when previously we only had screenshots and video which were all pretty scarce. Unused Eclipse stages got a lot of love in this too. We got earlier versions of Lighthouse Island, Launcha Freda Peaks, and Yoshi Village. Hey look, it's that path I mentioned earlier. Oh my god, those horrible funnel clouds are back. I am so happy that these get to take up some file size in this game. Beta Lighthouse Island has such an interesting vibe to me. I'm not really sure how to explain it. I guess it just looks like a Mario 64 level with the graphical fidelity of a GameCube game to me. There's various level ports like the spring section of Click Clock Wood from Banjo-Kazooie, this Crash Bandicoot level where you have to destroy all the crates. I like that one. Super Monkey Ball has a level here where you kick an II Durian around, but I sort of maybe cheated this one. Windfall Island from Wind Waker, Delfino Square from Mario Kart Wii. Yeah, I'm okay with this one being cut. You can still do this though. Hey, you can see Peach Beach off in the distance in this one. There's a couple remade 64 levels like the Aquarium Red Coins from the original and Sunshine Isles and Block 4 both from 64 DS, all of which are in their respective spots from the original game. A crusty version of Block 4 was actually in Demo 1. Some Demo 2 levels are here too, like Starshine Beach Galaxy from Galaxy 2 and Super Galaxy from 3D World. They actually changed the coins for these two levels too to be coins from their respective games, along with any other time this change would make sense. Even having rupees on Windfall, Wumpa Fruit on Insanity Island, and bananas in Monkey Ball. That's a really cool detail. Actually, that one secret level in Yoshi Village did that too, I just forgot to mention it back there. There's plenty of original cut levels here too, like there's this weird block level that confused me deeply when I first played it. I understand it more now, but I kinda hate it. There's this bamboo level that is kinda neat, but it uses floating lily pads which look bad. I remember older versions of Sunburn had custom levels that used these too, so I'm pretty glad that they moved away from these. Easily my favorite cut level was Isle Medusa. It's one of the surrounding islands from the original game's intro. Yes, this is what I want. I could really see this being one of the best levels if it actually got completed. I really love the scale of this one. It's genuinely so huge and the design is so fun. This really had a lot of potential and I am so sad it never got completed. And yeah, it is very blatantly incomplete. The back half of it is just placeholder cubes. None of the NPCs actually say anything besides a placeholder Sunshine dialogue. And this is more so Eclipse's fault, but one of the Cataclacs had a blue coin. You know, after you've already gotten 100%. Actually, the same goes for E3 Delfino Plaza. Both of them are patched out now, but that's not going to stop me from exposing them to the world. Another level I'm so sad to see get cut is this water park. I kind of hate how small everything is. It kind of feels like everything was scaled down from what it should be, and the performance is pretty awful for some reason. But I love the idea of a water park 3D platformer level. It's something I've been wanting to see for ages because I think it has so much potential, but I haven't actually seen it for some reason, and a game like Sunshine just feels like the perfect time to do that. I don't know, maybe a future Sunshine mod can take inspiration from this. The actual objectives these levels throw at you are very repetitive a lot of the time, with some of them either being extremely shallow or with over half of them being red coin shines. Actually, red coin stars. Yeah, you collect power stars here. They literally do nothing, there's no actual reason to collect them. They remain gold colored even if you already collected them, so yeah, this is not tracked in anything at all. Well, except retro achievements, at least. So I'm actually entirely fine with these stars being repetitive because you can just not do them and explore the level instead. The stars are clearly here just for the sake of giving these levels a little more of a purpose. Like yeah, of course there's red coin stars everywhere, that's the easiest star to make. This really is a museum first and foremost, so I don't see the issue with this. It's genuinely so great to get such an extensive look at so much of Sunshine and Eclipse's cut content. This is so cool. Some would argue too cool. Yeah, I've seen some people criticize this for being too good to have a completion requirement behind, but here's the thing with that. If you're one of those people, getting every shine really isn't that hard, especially now that guides exist. If you really don't want to even do that, then just watch a video on it. Like I said, these stars have very shallow and samey objectives behind them, so actually playing these levels honestly isn't the fun part. It's seeing all the cut content in the castle itself that makes it fun. So I really don't think watching someone play this over actually playing it yourself is that much worse. This is a museum, and museums are more about observing than anything. Personally, I only have a couple of criticisms for this. I really wish they placed signs outside the level entrances just to give you more context, because everything I said before is just based off my prior knowledge. I'd actually really love to know more. That, and I find it really odd that you can't refight the second Bowser fight here. It makes so much sense to place him in one of the Bowser warps from the original 64. Actually, you can't fight the original Sunshine final boss or even play Corona Mountain at all at this point, because that reverts back to Fire Shrine once you get every Shine Sprite. I'd really like to see them add that in a future update somewhere. Okay, I'm still not done with the completion rewards. You can now turn off different moves BetterSunshineEngine adds, and I actually would not recommend doing that because that actually makes some levels impossible. You can turn on bugs and exploits, which means rocket storage is back. Let me check. Yep, this weird room is still here. Beyond rocket storage, there's a new exploit where you can hover burst infinitely as long as you dive into it, and oh wow, yeah, I think this is somehow even more broken than rocket storage. I literally jumped over the entire plaza from this island. This does not mean the clips are back, unfortunately. There's a mirror mode. That'll be fun to play at some point. I tried streaming Sunshine mirror mode briefly before I decided my internet is too inconsistent for streaming, and that really broke my brain. It's the... Oh, gross. Oh, gross. Oh, gross. This is gonna mess with me. Oh my god. I'm gonna try to show off a thing here. Is it? No, wait, I'm on the wrong side. Or is it? No, it's this side. Right? No, I don't remember. Okay, it is this side. Even, like, the fact that Mario's on the left side now, this is gonna hurt, like, bother me so much. I very much appreciate all these added options. It makes total sense to only allow people to abuse rocket storage if they've 100% of the game before. Adding that, and especially mirror mode, are great ways to add replayability. Super Mario Eclipse is fantastic. I am saying this with the most extreme bias anyone can possibly have towards anything, but Super Mario Eclipse is my favorite game since Super Mario Sunshine. The night this came out, I played for 5 hours straight. I had to force myself away from the game to avoid screwing up my sleep schedule too badly, which didn't do me too much good because I couldn't sleep anyway. I just wanted to play more Mario Eclipse. I haven't done that since I was a kid. I haven't had this much fun with a video game since then either. I outright forgot I can like video games this much. I 100%ed this game in just 3 days. I did it so fast that someone asked if I cheated. No, I'm just unemployed. Once again, this is me being extremely biased. I'm not saying Super Mario Eclipse is better than every other video game released in the last 22 years. I'm certainly thinking it though. But it is a game that appeals to me, and it does it hard. It may not be a perfect expansion to Sunshine. Being a hardcore fan of that game, this one did disappoint me in some areas, but man, it nailed it in areas where it really mattered. The movement is better than ever. The new levels in Isle Delfino feel right at home. The ones in the post-game are different only in ways that make them stand out for the better. The charm is through the roof just like the original, and the world building is like nothing I've ever seen in the entire genre, even surpassing the original. Whether or not this will replace the original for me is hard to say. It's a much longer game, and I do find the original game to be more consistent. But I'm open to it, man, I'm open to it. Even if I went in thinking that there's no chance that that will happen. In case this wasn't already crystal clear, I absolutely recommend any fan of Sunshine to play this, and considering it has all of the original game in it, I don't think it'd be a bad idea to play it even if you're new. The Eclipse team truly made something incredibly special, and everyone who has ever been involved with this project should feel nothing but pride. The Eclipse team is actually sticking together to work on a new original game, becoming a full-on indie developer. There's no word on what their first game will be, but I can only imagine how amazing it'd be to see them push this open 3D platformer design philosophy even further in a game created with it in mind from the beginning, in an engine made without the same limitations as one from 2002. If it's anything like that, I'll be there to support it day one. But what about the future of Eclipse itself? Well, it's on version 1.0.4 right now, but in the near future there's supposed to be a major update coming out, version 1.1. Exactly when this will be is pretty up in the air, especially because the main developer is very understandably taking a break right now. Exactly what this version entails isn't fully known, but we do know they're adding a new cutscene featuring voice acting for Toadsworth. They actually hosted auditions for him a while ago, and I let my friend Thomas know about that. If you see my other Sunshine Mods video, you know him. He's this guy. Here's a bit of his audition.
Now, boys, don't touch that stuff. Princess, look! On the statue's head! Oh, no! Yada blah 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 blah.
As of writing this, they still haven't announced who was casted, but Thomas did get a lot of positive attention, which that on its own made me really happy to see. There were some other really good ones, so I'm sure I'll be happy with whoever they pick regardless. Other than that, they've also stated that they're hoping to get the co-op and randomizer in. The co-op being based off the Aztec 9's co-op mod I covered in the other video. If you follow me on Twitter or have watched my streams, you might know that I love Zelda randomizers, more specifically Ship of Harkinian's Ocarina of Time's randomizer. This is another phenomenal fan project that I definitely want to cover one day, but for now I'll just say that this made Ocarina of Time randomizers so much more convenient. And it's what got me into them to begin with. It bumped Ocarina of Time to a game that I liked but felt no reason to go back to all that often, to one of my favorite games that I replay multiple times a year. Randomizers really are just that fun to me, and I could not recommend enough. That being said, I feel like they work better for games where progression is based around different items or moves you get, so basically pre-Breath of the Wild Zelda games and basically any Metroidvania. I don't know how much I'd love it in a game like Eclipse, but Sunshine being my favorite game, I'm still incredibly excited to try it out, especially if they're adding co-op mode too. Like, combining those two things sounds like a lot of fun. Oh yeah, I should also note that playing this on real hardware is not recommended right now. I already mentioned the new music doesn't play due to Nintendo, but there's also multiple graphical bugs. The new moves literally just do not work, and it runs pretty horribly on a real GameCube with Swiss from what I've heard. Once again, from what I've heard, it runs much better on Wii with Nintendo, but all those other issues still apply. I'm not speaking from experience, but I've seen a lot of talk about this on the Discord server. I could see these issues being remedied one day on Wii at least, but at least as of now, stick with Dolphin if that's possible. You don't need that strong of a PC to run Dolphin. There's some community updates in the work too, like different translations being added. The Sunshine Online devs are currently working on updating that to work with BetterSunshineEngine, which would mean Eclipse Online is coming. There's a retro achievement set. I haven't played this myself yet, but I'll probably love getting everything if it's anything like the Mario Sunshine set. Like, that was a lot of fun. I love doing that. And there's even an HD texture pack. It uses AI upscaling as a base, and the community is coming together to slowly replace the more problematic textures, which is a very good thing because this is sinful. I think a lot of the AI upscale textures can actually look pretty good or at least alright, but there's still so many textures that need to be replaced as of version 2.1.0. I should also note that I'm using a lower quality pack because I find 4K textures to be overkill, but that is an option if you want them to look cleaner. I actually really love some of the redone HUD elements, like the life icon and especially the shine icon. They're both so much more faithful than the pack I used for the vanilla game, but I really don't like this hover nozzle. It doesn't fit in with the other nozzle textures at all, and the angle's not nearly as visually interesting as the original. I also kinda hate the detailed grass in the plaza. The original looks almost painted, and this just loses all of its stylization. The water also looks invisible, weirdly. I don't like this brick texture on the jail cell either, it looks way too detailed. Honestly, aside from any AI upscale crusts, those were the only textures I actively dislike. I think most of the replaced ones actually look pretty faithful, and I look forward to seeing more and more get redone. AI upscaled or not, I actually really like the palm tree leaves. The texture pack I used for the vanilla game took some creative liberties with that, so it's nice to have something more faithful here. I don't want to criticize the AI upscale textures too much because I know they're working to replace them, but these ones in that one 2D level look like that gross filter you see in some emulators. I don't recommend using this pack outside of testing it as of now, but I think it's worth keeping an eye on at least. Also, Obsidian Sunday made a mod that replaces Piantissimo with Sonic, and I mean, I can't not bring that up. This is probably doing more for me than it should. The model itself is made by some crappy edits, and yeah, it's good. However, I'm gonna sound like a Sonic fan right now and complain about the quills, because it does that thing the newer games do and scrunch up the top 3 together. And I just always thought that looked awkward. That's a preference thing though. This is a good model, and I'd like to see the mod get more fleshed out by adding new UI elements and voice clips. Wow, that video ended up being the biggest one I've ever made by a lot. When I initially started making this video, I knew it would be one of my bigger ones, but yeah, I didn't think it'd be this big. I hope you all enjoyed it regardless, because Super Mario Eclipse really is a special game to me, and I really hope it gets the ball rolling on Mario Sunshine mods becoming more and more common. I already know of Super Mario Elements, which is really cool from what I've seen, but more is always welcome. There's also some updates on some of the mods I covered last time, along with some new ones, and I'll make sure to cover that stuff eventually in a sequel video. I don't know when, it depends on how long it takes for the Sunshine modding community to make enough stuff to warrant a new one. Again, we'll see. But I am done, so goodbye everyone.